365. The desert wind carried a faint hum of engines that echoed through the distant hills. Along the dusty road leading to the Iron Serpent's compound, a lone figure stumbled under the midday sun. Her name was Emily, a young pregnant woman in her late 20s, wearing a faded dress and clutching her belly as she dragged her feet closer to the gate. The heat shimmered on the asphalt, making everything look unreal, like a fever dream. When she finally reached the massive steel gate painted with the gang's serpent emblem, her knees buckled. She collapsed with a soft cry, her hands smudging the dirt as her breathing grew shallow. Inside the compound, laughter and the sound of metal tools echoed from the garage. A group of bikers was fixing a Harley when one of them, a tall man with a scar on his temple named Logan, noticed movement near the entrance. He squinted against the sun, wiping his hands on a rag. "Someone's out there," he muttered. At first the others ignored him. Strangers at the gate usually meant trouble, but something in his tone made them look. When they saw her lying motionless in the dirt, the atmosphere changed instantly. Tools dropped. Cigarettes fell from lips. Without a word, Logan ran toward the gate, his boots kicking up dust. The others followed. By the time they reached her, Emily's skin was pale and slick with sweat. Her pulse was faint. Logan crouched beside her, his rough hands trembling slightly. Hey, stay with me," he said, his voice low but urgent. He didn't care who she was, only that she needed help, and fast. The air was tense as Logan shouted for someone to bring water. A younger biker named Miles sprinted toward the clubhouse, returning with a plastic bottle. He poured a little on her lips, but she didn't respond. Her eyelids fluttered, and a whisper escaped her mouth, something no one could make out. Logan pressed his ear close, his heart racing. "She's saying, 'Help the baby,'" he murmured. The words hit everyone like a punch. The Iron Serpents weren't known for kindness. Their reputation stretched across counties, fights, smuggling, lawless freedom. But at that moment, those labels didn't matter. Logan scooped Emily into his arms as if she weighed nothing, shouting for the gates to open. Inside, the bikers cleared a space on a worn leather couch in the common room. Someone turned on a fan, another grabbed towels and water. Emily's breathing was shallow. Sweat dripped down her temple as she tried to speak again. "Please, don't let them find me." Logan frowned. "Who?" he asked, but she had already drifted into unconsciousness. Outside, the engines of parked motorcycles gleamed under the harsh light. The air smelled of oil and dust. The gang's medic, a quiet man called Doc, rushed in with his weathered first aid kit. He had served as a paramedic before losing his license years ago. Now, he was the one they turned to in emergencies. He checked her pulse, lifted her eyelids and muttered, "She's dehydrated, exhausted, and in her third trimester. We need to cool her down." The men worked in silence, following his orders. Ice packs, water, wet cloths. Even those who'd never cared about anything beyond their next ride now watched anxiously. When Emily finally stirred again, her first sight was a group of tattooed faces hovering above her, worried, protective, almost gentle. For the first time in years, the Iron Serpents looked like something they'd never imagined they could be. Heroes. When Emily's eyes opened, confusion clouded her face. She blinked at the dim light filtering through the dusty blinds, realizing she was lying on a couch surrounded by men in leather vests. The air smelled of oil, sweat, and coffee. Panic surged and she tried to sit up, clutching her belly. Where am I?" she asked weakly. Logan knelt beside her, hands raised in reassurance. "You're safe. You collapsed at our gate. We brought you in." His voice was calm but firm, the kind of tone that made people believe him. Doc handed her a cup of water. "Drink slow," he said, his gruff voice softening for the first time anyone could remember. Emily sipped and looked around. The men watched her, silent but curious. Some leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Others hovered near the doorway. pretending not to care, while clearly unable to look away. "You're with the Iron Serpents," Miles finally said. "Don't worry, we ain't the monsters people say we are." A faint smile touched Logan's lips, though his eyes stayed cautious. He could tell Emily wasn't just exhausted, she was afraid. Her fingers trembled slightly as she held the cup, and she kept glancing toward the windows, as if expecting someone to burst through them. "What were you running from?" he asked quietly. Emily froze. Her gaze dropped to the floor. I can't say. Not yet." Her voice broke. Logan didn't push. He'd seen fear like that before, not from enemies, but from survivors. He nodded, standing up. "Then don't. Rest for now." As he walked out of the room, the others followed, leaving Doc to watch over her. Outside, the sun dipped behind the hills, casting long shadows across the compound. For the first time in years, Logan felt something unfamiliar stirring inside him, a sense of purpose he thought he'd buried long ago. Night fell over the Iron Serpent's compound, and the distant hum of engines faded into silence. The men gathered around the fire pit, their faces flickering in the glow of the flames. Logan sat apart from the others, staring at the horizon where the desert met the sky. He couldn't shake the image of Emily's frightened eyes or the way she'd whispered about someone chasing her. Miles approached, tossing a beer can to him. "So, what's the plan, boss? You think she's trouble?" Logan caught it but didn't open it. "Everybody's trouble to somebody," he replied, his voice low. "Doesn't mean we turn our backs." The younger biker shrugged, half impressed, half uncertain. Compassion wasn't exactly their code. Inside, Doc checked on Emily again. She had fallen asleep, her breathing steadier, one hand resting protectively over her belly. He adjusted the towel on her forehead and muttered, "You're lucky he found you." But luck wasn't the word Emily would have used if she'd been awake. In her dreams, flashes of headlights, shouting voices, and a man's silhouette haunted her. She murmured something in her sleep, a name. "Derek." Outside, Logan rose and walked to the gate where the desert wind whistled through the bars. He'd spent most of his life defending this place from intruders, cops, and rival clubs. But something about Emily's arrival felt different. Like fate had rolled into his territory and left a mark he couldn't ignore. He pulled a cigarette from his pocket, lit it, and leaned against the post. The stars were sharp and cold above him. For the first time in years, the Iron Serpent's leader didn't feel untouchable. He felt responsible. And deep down, a thought crept in. Whoever she was running from might come looking soon. And if they did, they'd find more than a frightened woman. They'd find an army of men ready to protect her. By morning, Emily was sitting upright, a blanket draped over her shoulders. The faint smell of coffee filled the room, mixing with the metallic scent of engine grease. Logan entered quietly, carrying a tray, scrambled eggs, toast, and a steaming mug. He set it down without a word. "You should eat," he said. Emily hesitated. She wasn't used to kindness from strangers, especially men like these, tattooed, scarred, wearing leather and chains. Yet there was something disarmingly genuine in the way Logan avoided staring, as if giving her space to breathe. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice soft but steady. Doc came in moments later. "Your vitals look better." "The baby's strong," he said after checking her wrist. "But you can't keep running. Stress like this isn't good for either of you." Emily's eyes filled with tears. She pressed her lips together before whispering, "They won't stop looking for me. My husband. He's not who he pretends to be." Logan's gaze sharpened. He crouched near her. "What do you mean?" She looked at him, her expression a mix of fear and defiance. "He's dangerous. I found something. Something he was hiding. When I confronted him, he tried to hurt me. I barely escaped. The room fell silent. Logan's jaw tightened. He'd met monsters before. Some wore gang colors, others wore suits. "You don't need to worry," he said finally. "No one's getting through that gate unless I say so." Emily lowered her head, overcome with emotion. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. Logan shrugged. "Because once, someone helped me when I didn't deserve it." Outside, the sound of revving engines returned, the men gearing up for a ride. But this time, they weren't just bikers heading out for the open road. They were guardians of something fragile, something sacred, and they all felt it. This woman had just changed everything. The following days passed quietly, but the calm felt fragile, like glass waiting to crack. Emily stayed mostly indoors, helping around the clubhouse to feel useful. She cleaned the kitchen, folded rags, and sometimes sat by the window, watching the men fix their motorcycles. The bikers, once loud and restless, now spoke in lower tones when she was near. Something about her presence softened the edges of the place. Logan kept his distance, though his eyes often followed her without meaning to. There was a gravity to Emily's silence that reminded him of a past he rarely allowed himself to remember. The war, the people he couldn't save, the woman he'd lost years ago. One afternoon, as Emily was hanging laundry behind the compound, she noticed a small wooden cross half buried near the fence. Curious, she brushed away the sand. The name Hannah was carved roughly into it, a child's name. She turned when she heard footsteps. Logan stood there, his gaze fixed on the cross. "She was my sister's little girl," he said quietly. "She died years ago. We buried her here." Emily swallowed, touched by the unexpected vulnerability in his voice. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Logan nodded, hands in his pockets. "You don't have to be. But that's why I built this place, not for the bikes, for the people who don't fit anywhere else." His eyes met hers. "People like you." That night, Emily lay awake, listening to the faint hum of motorcycles in the distance. For the first time since she'd fled, she felt something close to safety, but it didn't last long. Near midnight, the sound of a car engine echoed from the road beyond the gate. Headlights swept across the compound walls. Logan, half asleep in his chair, stood instantly. His instincts screamed one thing: they'd found her. Logan moved fast, signaling the guards at the gate to cut the lights. The iron serpents knew the drill, engines off, voices low, eyes sharp. Only the wind whispered through the compound now. Emily, awakened by the noise, sat up with a gasp. Her instincts told her something was wrong before anyone had to say it. Logan entered the room, his presence filling the space. "We've got visitors," he said quietly. Emily's pulse quickened. "Is it him?" she asked, her voice trembling. Logan didn't answer, but his expression said enough. "Stay here, don't move," he ordered. Outside, a black SUV idled just beyond the gate. Its tinted windows reflected the faint light from the clubhouse. Logan approached slowly, his boots crunching against the gravel. "You're trespassing," he called out. "State your business." A man stepped out, sharp suit, polished shoes, the kind of confidence that came from power. He smiled thinly. "We're looking for a woman, pregnant, blonde. She's in danger." Logan's jaw tightened. "You mean the one who nearly died in the desert because someone left her there?" The man's expression hardened. "You don't understand. She's my wife." Behind the gate, the bikers exchanged looks. Emily's husband, the man she described as dangerous. Logan crossed his arms. "She doesn't want to see you." The man's eyes darkened. "You don't get to decide that." His voice was quiet, but laced with menace. Logan stepped closer, his tone colder now. "You're right, I don't. But this gate, this club, decides who walks through. And tonight, it's not you." The silence stretched, thick as smoke. Then the man gave a slow, cruel smile. "You're making a mistake, biker." "Maybe," Logan replied, "but it's one I can live with." The SUV backed away, disappearing into the night. But Logan knew this wasn't over. It was only the beginning. The morning after the confrontation, a heavy silence hung over the compound. Even the usual roar of engines seemed subdued, as if the place itself sensed the tension. Emily stood by the window, watching dust rise from the road where the black SUV had vanished hours earlier. Her hands rested protectively on her belly. She didn't know when, but she knew he would come back. Logan entered, a cup of coffee in one hand. "You didn't sleep," he said quietly. Emily shook her head. "He found me once. He'll do it again." Her voice carried a mixture of fear and exhaustion. Logan leaned against the doorway, his expression thoughtful. "He's not getting near you." "Not while you're here." Emily turned to him. "You don't understand. He has money, people, connections. He can make anyone disappear." Logan gave a dry laugh. "Lady, I've already disappeared from the world once. I don't scare easy." His words were calm, but his mind was racing. He needed a plan, not just to protect Emily, but to understand why this man was hunting her so relentlessly. Later that day, Miles and two other bikers returned from town with supplies. "We saw men asking questions at the gas station," Miles reported. "Black suits, same car." Logan's eyes narrowed. "Then we're running out of time." He gathered the crew around the table. Maps spread out, old radios buzzed faintly. "They're watching the roads, so we make them watch the wrong ones," Logan said. The plan was simple: fake a trail, draw the pursuers away, and get Emily somewhere safe. Emily listened from the hallway, tears in her eyes. No one had ever risked so much for her before. In the midst of her fear, she felt something unexpected: hope. As the bikers prepared their ride, the sound of engines once again filled the desert air, not with chaos, but with purpose. The iron serpents were no longer running from trouble. They were charging straight into it. By nightfall, the iron serpents had split into two groups. Logan led the decoy team that would draw the pursuers away, while Doc stayed behind to protect Emily. The plan was risky, but risk was something they all understood too well. Emily watched from the window as the engines started one by one. The deep rumble echoed across the desert, vibrating through the ground beneath her feet. She felt a strange mix of fear and gratitude. These men, outcasts, feared by the town, were risking their lives for her and her unborn child. Logan tightened his gloves, eyes locked on the open road. "We lead them east," he said to Miles. "Keep your radio open. If you see the SUV, don't engage. Just make them chase." Miles grinned. "You got it, boss." As the motorcycles thundered into the night, Emily felt an ache in her chest. She hadn't told Logan everything, not the full truth. The secret she carried wasn't just about her husband's violence, it was about what she had taken before she fled. Hours passed. Doc kept the lights low, sitting nearby with his shotgun resting across his lap. "You should rest," he muttered. Emily shook her head. "I can't." Her thoughts were miles away, following the sound of engines fading into the horizon. Suddenly, a faint crackle came through the radio. "Logan, they're on us," Miles' voice cut through the static. Two SUVs, armed. The sound of gunfire followed. Doc's knuckles tightened around the shotgun. Emily covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Then Logan's voice came through, calm but strained. "We've got this. Keep moving." Outside, the desert wind howled, and the moon hung cold and white above the compound. Emily whispered a silent prayer, realizing that this battle wasn't just for her safety anymore. It was for redemption, for all of them. The desert highway turned into chaos. Headlights zigzagged across the sand as the iron serpents raced through the night, engines roaring like thunder. The SUVs closed in fast, their tires kicking up clouds of dust. Bullets sliced through the darkness, sparking off rocks and metal. Miles ducked low on his bike, shouting into the radio, "They're gaining!" Logan gritted his teeth, twisting the throttle. "Split up!" he barked. The riders scattered, vanishing into different trails. The SUVs swerved, trying to follow. One turned after Logan, its headlights blinding. He leaned hard into a curve, his Harley sliding dangerously close to the edge of a ravine. Gravel sprayed behind him. In the compound, Emily stood frozen by the window. The distant flashes on the horizon looked like lightning, but she knew better. Doc cursed under his breath, checking his weapon. "Those boys better come back in one piece." Emily clutched her stomach, whispering, "Please, don't let them die because of me." Her voice cracked as another contraction hit, sharp, sudden, and deep. Panic surged through her veins. "Doc!" she gasped. He turned, instantly recognizing the signs. "It's time," he said grimly. "Your baby's coming." Back on the road, Logan veered off onto an old mining path, the SUV still chasing him. He reached for the small pouch Emily had left behind on the bike, the one she'd begged him not to open. But now, curiosity overpowered caution. He pulled it open just long enough to glimpse what was inside, stacks of cash and a flash drive. His heart sank. "This wasn't just about running from a man," he muttered. "It's about something bigger." He revved the engine, forcing the Harley to its limit. "You picked the wrong woman to chase," he growled. Then, with a daring maneuver, he skidded sideways, forcing the SUV to lose control and crash into the rocks. As the explosion lit up the night sky, Logan grabbed the radio. "Doc, she okay?" Static, then a cry in the background, not fear this time, a baby's cry. The cry echoed through the radio, fragile and pure, breaking the chaos like a miracle. Logan froze, disbelief washing over him. He turned his bike toward the compound, adrenaline drowning out the pain in his arms. "Doc, talk to me!" he shouted into the receiver. A shaky voice replied, half laughing, half crying. "She did it, Logan! The baby's here! It's a girl!" For a moment, the desert seemed to hold its breath. Logan exhaled, lowering his head, the roaring wind masking the emotion in his voice. "Good job, Doc. Good job." Then he gunned the engine and sped back through the dark, every instinct pushing him home. Inside the clubhouse, the scene was surreal. Doc knelt beside Emily, who held a tiny, crying newborn wrapped in one of the biker's flannel shirts. Sweat and tears mixed on her face, but her smile was radiant. "She's okay," Emily whispered, gazing down at her daughter. "She's perfect." Doc leaned back, exhausted, wiping his brow. "Toughest delivery room I've ever had," he muttered. The other bikers stood in stunned silence, their rough faces softened by the sight before them. Miles arrived first, bruised and dusty from the chase, stopping dead in his tracks when he saw the baby. "No way," he murmured. "In here." Emily nodded weakly. "Right here." Logan burst through the door moments later, his shirt torn, hands trembling. He stopped when he saw her, Emily cradling the child, safe and alive. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Emily whispered, "Her name's Hope." Logan knelt beside them, his voice breaking as he said, "Fitting name." Outside, the dawn crept slowly over the desert, painting the sky with streaks of gold and blue. The iron serpents, men once feared by everyone, stood together watching the sunrise, realizing they'd just witnessed something none of them thought they ever would. New life, born in the heart of the outlaw's world. The following days blurred together in a mix of exhaustion, wonder, and a strange peace that no one in the iron serpents had felt in years. Emily rested in a small room near the back of the clubhouse, the baby always close to her chest. Hope. The name seemed to radiate through the walls, softening even the hardest souls around her. Logan checked the perimeter each morning, making sure no strange vehicles appeared on the horizon. After what happened on the highway, he knew her husband wouldn't give up easily. The man had money, reach, and motives that went deeper than love or anger. The flash drive Logan had found was proof. It contained files, bank transfers, and photos tying the man to a series of illegal deals that could ruin him if exposed. One afternoon, Logan brought the drive to Emily. "You risked your life for this," he said, placing it on the table. Emily looked up at him, her eyes tired but resolute. "I couldn't let him keep hurting people. I thought if I got away with it, maybe I could stop him. Maybe my daughter could grow up in a world that wasn't controlled by monsters." Logan nodded slowly. "Then we finish what you started." Together, they made a plan. With the help of an old friend in law enforcement, someone who still owed Logan a favor, they sent the evidence to the authorities anonymously. It was only a matter of time before her husband's empire began to crumble. That night, as Emily rocked her baby under the dim glow of a single bulb, Logan stood by the door, watching quietly. "You don't have to thank us," he said. "You saved yourself. We just gave you a place to land." She smiled faintly. "No, Logan, you gave me a family." For once, he didn't argue. Outside, the iron serpents gathered around the fire again, the desert wind whispering softly. Not of danger this time, but of redemption finally found. Weeks later, the compound looked different. The same walls that once echoed with the roar of engines and chaos now carried laughter, soft, human, and warm. Hope had become the club's little guardian angel, passed from arm to arm while Emily recovered. Even the toughest bikers took turns watching her sleep, pretending they didn't care as their faces softened behind scruffy beards. Logan spent more time outside lately, sitting by the gate where it had all begun. The desert stretched endlessly ahead, golden under the setting sun. Miles joined him one evening, leaning against a post. "Never thought I'd see this place turn into a nursery," he joked. Logan smirked. "Neither did I." He paused, gazing at the horizon. But maybe it was time something good found us. The news came a few days later. Emily's husband had been arrested. The files had reached the right hands, and his empire had collapsed overnight. For the first time, Emily could breathe without fear. When she told Logan, her voice shook with relief. "It's over," she whispered. Logan nodded. "No, it's just beginning." Emily decided to stay for a while, helping around the compound, cooking meals, and bringing light to a place that had long forgotten what it felt like. The bikers followed her lead, fixing up the old chapel nearby, repainting the gate, and turning their rough sanctuary into something that almost resembled a home. One morning, as the sun broke over the desert, Emily stepped outside, holding hope. Logan stood nearby, arms crossed, watching silently. "You ever think about leaving?" he asked. Emily looked down at the baby in her arms, then back at him. "Not anymore. I think we both found what we were running from." Logan smiled, a real one this time. The engine started in the distance, the brothers preparing for another ride. But now, they weren't just outlaws. They were protectors, reborn under the desert sky. And as the gates opened, the sound of motorcycles roared once again, not as a threat, but as a promise that even the lost could find redemption when compassion rides at their side.